So, aloha at magandang araw sa inyong lahat. I'm Lizelle Kaasi and I will be your moderator today. On behalf of the Philippine Consulate General in Honolulu, I wish to welcome everyone to this online presentation on Ilonggo cuisine. This activity is in support of our effort to promote Philippine culture and cuisine in Hawaii and American Samoa. So I believe that food is one of the gateways to understanding a culture. It's also what links the diaspora to their motherland. Indeed, when a migrant or balikbayan returns home, among the first stops is to visit a beloved Filipino restaurant. Vice versa, local delicacies and food specialties are among the go-to pasalubongs of migrants to friends or colleagues in the countries they consider their second home. Having experienced moving to Hawaii for work, I feel very fortunate that Filipino food is accessible and available here. The familiar flavor of sinigang and sisig lessens the feeling of homesickness despite being apart from family and loved ones. In Hawaii, the Filipino diaspora and locals have been exposed to adobo, lumpia, and pancit. Having a huge number of Filipinos hailing from the Ilocos region, I'm certain that most of us have also become familiar with pinakbet and bagnut. Today, we will have a brief overview of a popular regional cuisine from the Visayas region. To discuss Ilonggo cuisine, I'm honored to introduce a dear friend and valued partner of the consulate. Dr. Pia Arboleda is the chair of the Department of Indo-Pacific Languages and Literatures at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She also served as the director of the Center for Philippine Studies at UH Manoa. Dr. Arboleda holds a Doctor of Arts degree and Master's degree in Language and Literature. She teaches translation theory and practice, Philippine history and culture, Philippine folklore, Philippine film, and results life and writing, among others. In addition to her work in the academe, Dr. Arboleda is also a poet, creative writer, and has produced multimedia instructional materials on Philippine folklore and films. Hailing from the Visayas region herself, Dr. Arboleda will be sharing the background, philosophy, and her own experience with Ilonggo cuisine. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Pia Arboleda. Dr. Pia, go ahead.
Gandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Lizelle, sa inyong magandang introduction at pagpapakilala po sa akin. Let me start my PowerPoint. Oops, sorry. So first of all, thank you so very much to the Philippine Consulate. And I'm aware that we are going to celebrate Filipino Food Week in October. So I know you're here to listen to Ilonggo cuisine. It doesn't work if you can't taste it. So you have to be there in October in order to try all of the things that I will be talking about. It's a bit it's too much information, but I hope you would help me out by sharing your thoughts on chat. So, so this lecture is not about I love bok choy, although I will talk about bok choy. It's actually my analysis on Philippine cuisine. And I'd like to talk about the differences between how people eat in this very wonderful region where my parents have come from. So I am the daughter of Pilar de la Rama Crisostomo and Enrique Salazar Arboleda. My mother was a nurse and my father was a penniless lawyer. My mother had many suitors, including doctors, hacienderos, etc. And then she said that she chose my father because of his sense of humor. And I said, sense of humor? Sana haciendero ako, hindi ako nagpapakahirap dito ngayon sa Hawaii. But of course, my father was a very charming and handsome man. And you can tell by how much they love each other, how lucky I was growing up. This is a picture of the Arboledas from Bacolod. My father is the third child. He is called Ike or Iking. This is my mother, my grandfather, and my grandmother. My grandmother was a high school teacher, and my grandfather was a tenor in the church. When he first saw my grandmother, he said, "She is going to be my wife," which was rather insolent because at that time he didn't even know her name. But this penniless man ended up to be a regional trial court judge, and they had 10 children, 9 boys and a girl. So that's my background, which I will return to later. So Hiligaynon or Ilonggo is from the Spanish Hiligüeños, which is derived from the older Iligan or Iliganon, meaning people of the coast. And the root word of it is Ilig, meaning to go downstream, referring to Iloilo and Panay. The term Ilonggo is derived from Ilong-Ilong, the old name for Iloilo City in Panay, on Panay Island. Ilonggo is considered to define the specific group of people whose ethnic origins are in the provinces of Iloilo, Guimaras, Panay, and Bacolod, while Hiligaynon defines the language and culture of the Ilonggo people. So this is the where the Ilonggos reside. So Western Visayas, so Iloilo, Bacolod, okay. Negros Island, this island that looks like a sock, is divided by a mountain range. Therefore, only the Bacolod region speaks Hiligaynon. Dumaguete region speaks Cebuano. So when we talk about Ilonggo or Hiligaynon, we are only referring to Western Visayas region. So Cebu, Dumaguete, Tagbilaran, Bohol are not part of the Ilonggo region. They have a distinct language and culture, which is Cebuano. Sometimes we hear people refer to themselves as Negrense or people of Negros. But that's only the people from Bacolod and Dumaguete. So I'll provide a brief historical background because, as you know, what the history of a people defines its cuisine. So Bacolod and Silay were once the domain of powerful sugar barons. The sugar industry was the brainchild of the former British Vice Consul Loney in the 1850s. Initially, he set up the plantations and the mechanical infrastructure in Iloilo. Eventually, the industry leapfrogged over to the western part of Negros, where the land was found to be more suitable for this crop. Sons of the Iloilo aristocracy were sent over to Negros to start and manage the plantations, and workers were brought in from neighboring Visayan islands. By the next decade, Negros was the leading producer of sugar in the Philippines. So from 1900 to 1945, the Philippine sugar industry benefited from favorable U.S. tariff laws and a quota system that guaranteed a protected market for Philippine sugar in the United States. Then in the 1960s, the U.S. developed competitive sources of sugar, which means they were buying not only from the Philippines. For the past 3 decades, the sun has been slowly setting on the Negros sugar aristocracy. Negros is not unlike the American South with its old graceful cotton plantation and a bygone culture that is Northern industrial counterpart never quite aspired to. So dati po mayamang-mayaman ang not the people but the region. But recently, because of the crisis in the sugar industry, it's not the same. However, the plantation culture has influenced the way that people eat and prepare food. So the sugarcane farms and centrals these are mills that produce raw sugar from cane, are concentrated in the north and the west. Large numbers of migrant sugar workers annually cross the strait from Panay to harvest the cane. So maize, corn is the major root crop. Rice, coconuts, bananas, papayas, and mangoes are secondary crops. And then the timber extraction and processing is also important. Mineral deposits include copper, mined at Sipolay, and gypsum, coal, and rock phosphates. Salt is produced in the eastern part of the region. Of course, I just took that from Britannica. However, and this is a direct quote from New York Times archives. So in the 70s, there was a crisis in this region. So industry sources said that the Philippines' trouble started in 1975 when, with the sugar price about, at that time, sugar prices were about 36 cents a pound. So, but the government withheld sugar from the market, so they stockpiled it in the hope that the price would return to the 67 high 67-cent price. So they were keeping the stocks so that the prices would go up. But it didn't work and the prices continued to drop. So this was the time when the school gymnasiums, swimming pools, and churches were used to house the sugar. In this sugar bowl, and I continue to read, in this sugar bowl of the Philippines, it has turned, Philippines have been turned into emergency. So, sorry, let me repeat. So swimming pools, churches have been turned into emergency sugar storehouses. Then the stockpile of raw sugar has reached a record size. So sobrang dami na ng sugar, but the government was trying to sell off as much as possible in quiet deals designed to prevent a further price drop, but it didn't really work at that time. So the result was malnutrition, and this crisis affected 1 million people in different ways. This is a photo by John Silva, and according to him, this girl died several days after this photograph was taken. There were thousands more just like her during the famine in Negros. In 2016, there were still 100,000 cases of malnutrition in Negros. And today, in the whole country, 95 children in the Philippines die from malnutrition. 27 out of 1,000 Filipino children do not get past their 5th birthday. A third of Filipino children are stunted or short for their age. I think it's important for us to look at it in this light because I will talk about food that's really fancy, but please don't think that everybody eats the same way in Negros because there is extreme poverty in the region as well. We okay so far?
Yes.
Thank you. So let me continue with so that you have the background, but this morning I woke up and my ancestors told me that I should tell you a little bit more about their story. So I told you about my paternal grandparents, and this is additional information. This is my maternal grandfather, my lolo Laing. He was from Spain. He was 6 feet tall and was a musical genius. He played the piano, violin, bandurria. He could write musical scores and was a band leader. He married my grandmother, who was a nurse. But despite this, they lived in a shack on the property of one of the hacienda families. And my grandmother served as the family nurse. I remember taking a shower in a sort of in a shack with bamboo slats. And my brother and I would play outside her really hot, using old tires, and we were really dirty, but it was so much fun to live in my maternal grandmother's house. In contrast, my paternal grandfather and my grandmother lived in a larger house, um, and it's very hard to move in the big house. You're not really free to do anything much. And I hope my cousins aren't listening. But anyway, my father told me a story. My maternal grandmother, Lola Agus, was a bit of a show off. So um, my father lived across the street from the elementary school, but she would have the driver. She would have my father and his siblings ride the automobile, which is one of the few that there were at that time, and drop them off at the driveway of the school. So medyo bugalon, medyo mayabang ang aking lola. And she would lend her jewelry to the saints during the procession so that everyone would know that they were hers. So maybe now you understand why sometimes I'm also a bit of a show off. I get that from my my paternal grandmother. My mom, who was always, this was my mom. She was, can you see? I'm sorry. On the left most, the second row, the leftmost woman is my mother, and this is my grandmother on the second row, third from the left. So my mom was always the center of attention everywhere she went, not only because she was beautiful, but because her kindness radiated and people get attracted to her good energy. I learned the joyful art of being a wallflower because she was the center of attention, and I learned to observe everything around me. So you would now understand why I love Penelope Bridgerton. This is just to say that these are my families, but the contrast is, even in my own family, the contrast in lifestyle and food is very great. So my mother did not get to travel. She was the head nurse in Bacolod General Hospital. She was engaged to my father for 10 years. And my father was so indecisive. My mom had to threaten to leave him and she said, if you don't marry me, I will go and become a nurse in the States. But she gave up her career to raise me and my brother. This is my brother, Eric, the beauty, and I'm the brains in the family. It's not very, it's not very, well, every time they would see us, they will tell my brother, oh, you look so much like your mother. And then they will tell me that I'm the spitting image of my father, with my short hair on the photograph on the right, because my mother was a fan of Liza Minnelli. So then they would see my face, that face, and then they'd say, you look just like your dad. So I felt, oh my God, I'm really quite ugly then. So, but this was me. I was very rebellious. I was the flower girl, but I took off my shoes and I was running around all over the place, and they had to pin me down just so they could take this photograph for posterity. So this is more information about our life, and you will see later why this background is important. Okay, now on to the actual food. You have to taste a country's soul to understand it and to grasp its people. And by soul, I mean what grows there, what its people see and smell and touch every day, what travels through them and shapes them from the inside out. This is from The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. It's a tale about a man who owned a book barge named Literary Apothecary. And in this book, you come in and they will give you the book that you need, not the book that you wanted, to show that books are always medicine for the soul. So from the waters of the 7,641 islands of the Philippines, there is an abundance of seafood, fish, mollusks, crustaceans. And according to Doreen Fernandez, many, many years ago, kinilaw has been our indigenous cooking method. In the 1987 Balanghay excavation in Butuan City, Agusan del Sur, and in Mindanao, Tabon has this photograph, this image on the left, were recovered with the bones of yellowfin tuna. Fish bones were cut the same way fish is still cut today for kinilaw. Kinilaw or fish, kinilaw, fish or other seafood dressed with palm vinegar and or sometimes lime juice flavored with onions, ginger, and perhaps chili peppers and served without having passed through the fire. So we call this luto sa asim. So in different parts of the country, we have different types of kinilaw according to regional tastes. So the Ilocanos prefer theirs bitter, the Tagalog sour but bland, the Pampango's very rich, the Bicolanos peppery, the Waray sweet with gata or coconut milk. And for the Ilonggos, we prefer it sour with sweet undertones, obviously, because it's the sugar plantation region. The Cebuanos use radish, cucumber, vinegar, calamansi, and other types of, and then they put tabon-tabon, coconut milk added at the last minute. So this is a direct quote from Doreen Fernandez. So in Mindanao, tabon-tabon fruit is used to remove the fishy taste or yung lansa and to prevent stomach upsets, and seaweed and seashells are also favored. So in Bacolod, the fisher folk use kinilaw prepare kinilaw very simply. It's just the seafood or fish and then vinegar and done. The philosophy behind kinilaw, one picks from their immediate environment and ingests these as they are. So this is respect for the innate character of the food as it is, and as it's at its sweetest. Abundance dictates restraint. So one takes only what one needs. Hindi pwedeng sobra. So it's very different from the philosophy that we see in Western cultures. We just take and take and take, and then whatever we cannot eat, we throw away. This is unacceptable in indigenous cultures and philosophy. Nature replenishes itself and will always be there. Kinilaw is the sweetness of moderation. So yung tamang-tama lang. Excess is spoilage, wastage, and criminal. So honor the abundance by taking just enough. Kinilaw shuns adornment. Nature as it is beautiful, and one need not improve on it. This is a direct quote from Ed Alegre. So in Bacolod, we have tatlo kaklase nga kinilaw. The source of this is Flavors of Iloilo. So we have pasayan, lucos or squid, lucos pagita, kagtahong, sorry, that's a typo, squid, octopus, and mussels, and then the tangige or mackerel. We serve it with coconut milk, and the or sometimes it is just we add coconut milk at the end. So it's vinegar and then coconut milk. But as you can see from this photo, this is very fancy compared to what the fisher folk would eat. In the fishing vessels, they would take the small parts, almost like the I don't want to say trash, but like something you cannot sell because they're too small. They put everything in one bucket and then wash it off with some water, and then there's a bowl of vinegar. They dip it in vinegar and eat it right there and then. This is a little bit fancy, and even the presentation in coconut husks is very beautifully done. So there's a difference between how what the food would look on the table when you have to present it, when you have guests, as if you are eating kinilaw on a fishing vessel. So this is how the rich eat. So I'd like to remind everyone that, of course, when you see recipe books, they are very, very fancy. These are written by members of the ruling class. So my main sources, I had other sources, Flavors of Iloilo and Memories of Philippine Kitchens, are written by people who have money. And of course, the presentation is very grand, the decor is carefully thought of. When my mother took me to remember my grandmother was living in a shack close to the house of the Hacienderos, who were also our relatives actually, but they're the rich relatives. So my mother took me to their house, and there I saw like table setting for 8 people, matching, and I overheard my auntie in that rich house say, sugar must be so fine it dissolves in coffee without stirring. And to make sugar really, really fine, that's the expensive kind of sugar, because normally we get the coarse type. In this household, you need to learn to do this with your teacup. And it's a very tense kind of situation, because for somebody like me who didn't know how to behave, it was a very difficult situation, because in our own homes, the atmosphere is very relaxed in the kitchen table. So we have abregana, which are appetizers, sabaw, which is soup. Then you have the entree, which could be chicken or duck, baboy, pork, carne, beef, and fish. Then you have the carbs, the pancit and kanon, pancit and rice. And we have the utan or vegetables. And we have panamis or dessert. And my grandmother always calls it postre, from the Spanish, I guess. So I'm going to show you some of these, but remember again, the context. This is how the rich eat, not your daily, ordinary, quote, fare. So abregana would be, look at the presentation, right? It's very fancy. Ensalada or seaweed, and lato. Ensalada nga amargoso, which is bitter gourd with anchovy fillet. fresca nga lumpia, fresh spring rolls of heart of coconut, paklay or bamboo shoots. And then there's linagpang nga inuga nga lukos, grilled baby kinilaw, and of course the kinilaw. Grilled baby squid salad, and of course there is the kinilaw for appetizers. This is a quote from Memories of Philippine Kitchens. Kevin Piamonte says, the best way to cook amorgoso or bitter gourd or ampalaya in Filipino is to squeeze it in salt and cook it very fast, because the more you cook, the more bitter it tastes. Saute garlic, onions, and shrimp, then add the sliced amorgoso. You scramble eggs separately and then add them to the amorgoso. And he says this is a very Ilonggo touch. So when you eat, I don't like ampalaya or bitter gourd, but prepared this way, you can hardly taste the bitterness. I mean, but sometimes you want to eat it for the bitter taste. So it depends on you. So you just cook it more if you want it to be more bitter. But in my experience, I think people like to remove the bitterness from the ampalaya. Of course, sabaw. Okay, here we go. I love bok choy. Okay, so sabaw is lapas from the past bok choy. So it is derived from the Chinese bakyu, meaning, I'm sorry if you're Chinese and I didn't pronounce that properly. So it means meat water. Okay, so I have to put in the note that most of our cuisine is actually, and even in Bacolod, is actually highly influenced by Chinese cuisine. It would look like it's influenced by Spanish cuisine, but the food has been there a bit longer. And as you can see from the history of La Paz of bok choy, this is the La Paz bok choy of La Paz Market. It is Iloilo's signature dish. It is a rich pork and beef-based broth filled with yellow noodles and topped with cut up roast pork, chicharron, fried garlic, and scallions. However, Renalio Giliergan owns the original bok choy stand at La Paz Market. He inherited the recipe and business from his father, who worked for and later bought the original noodle stand from its Chinese owners, who started it 50 years ago. So this soup is actually Chinese, but years later, it was innovated and changed to suit Ilonggo tastes. Pancit molo. Pancit molo is a soup of pork dumplings in chicken broth named after one of the oldest sections of Iloilo. Molo was originally, you see again, the Parian, the Chinese quarters in Iloilo, established in the 18th century by the Spanish to segregate the growing Chinese population. So if you remember in our history, even in Intramuros, Manila, in the Manila area, the Chinese were always segregated, and in our history, there were instances where the cities were burnt so that they could get rid of the Chinese in the Philippines. This was the same case in Western Visayas. There was a separate Chinese quarter. So Pancit Molo and La Paz bok choy came from those from the Chinese. So growing up, this is our okay. Whenever we made Pancit Molo, because it's very tedious to make, we can only usually serve this during Christmas or New Year. First, you wrap the dumplings, and depending on how many people you will feed, it will take you the whole afternoon just to wrap the dumplings. But it is always a fun activity because it is a good excuse for chismis. So mostly the women will gather around the kitchen. My aunts from Santa Ana, my neighbor, my mom's best friend from next door, and sometimes me, but most of the time it was my brother who was in the kitchen with them. So they would sit there and gossip and, okay, who's pregnant? Have your children graduated? What medication are you taking, etc. So food has always been a communal activity. So I think that my mother would really hate me um, if she finds out that I buy the dumpling that um, ready made, and then I just cook the soup and put the dumplings inside, because who has the time to to do, I mean, to wrap dumplings by yourself. I would do it if you promise to come here and chismis with me, but I will not sit and wrap 100 dumplings on my own if I can buy the dumplings from the store. So the other, oh, sorry, for the bok choy, the basic bok choy is only the soup and the dumpling. But if you are rich, it is served with chicken, ham. You can put sausages in your soup, which is how the rich, in Lola Agus's house, it had chicken, ham, etc. In my Lola Muding's house, then it only had the broth and the dumpling, but the scallions on top are always there. So you can prepare the same dish. You can make it simpler or more extravagant according to taste, and also according to what you can afford. So there are other soups. So basoy is ginger soup with pork tenderloin and offal. Ilonggo binakol nga manok sa butong. So it's native chicken soup with coconut meat and juice. There's cocido, boiled mix of meat with fideo. Linaga nga kasudlan sang baka sa batuan kaglibas. And now I forget what it means. So it's like boiled beef with batuan. Okay. And I will tell you what batuan is in a bit. So earlier, before I came on, Ma'am Lizelle was asking me, so what makes Ilonggo food unique? One of the unique ingredients is batuan. So if you, it's batuan is used almost for almost everything, but you just imagine well, okay, never mind. Let me explain. So batuan is a popular ingredient and culinary icon in the Visayas region, so especially in Panay and Negros. So it's a souring agent. So it is sinigang. Technically, it's the same sinigang of that you find anywhere else, but in our house, they will say it's not sinigang if you don't use batuan. So it's used in sinigang, kansi, inasal, and of course KBL, which is Kadios Baboy and Langka. So earlier I showed you I mentioned cocido. These are the ingredients in cocido. On the second row from the bottom, the left side is the batuan. This is the batuan tree on the right. So studies prove this fruit is rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, and medical research shows it aids in managing diabetes and weight loss. However, it is an endangered plant, and there is now a movement to try and propagate it. So, and hopefully it can be grown outside of the Negros region. So then also there is Sinamak. This is whenever my father would eat breakfast, the first thing he will say is ang sinamak. So it is, you can buy this from the market, but you really shouldn't, because it's very easy to make. It is spiced vinegar. You put chilies, garlic, peppercorn, and langkawa or galangal, then some onions, depending on what you prefer. You let it sit for 3 days. And then you get sort of a spiced and you get flavored vinegar. So this is a staple in all of our cuisine. The idea being you eat according to taste. So sometimes you get the food quite bland. So you put in your own salt, your own sugar, and your own how much sinamak you like. And the way our cuisine is prepared, it's sort of right brain. You cannot really ask how many kilos of beef and how many tablespoons of sugar or salt. It's always a very intuitive process. You taste it as you go and you flavor it as necessary according to taste and mood. Sometimes when my mother is very tired, our pancit molo doesn't taste quite as nice. So I always make sure, especially if it's Christmas and it's my birthday too, that when she prepares pancit molo, that I'm there trying to make her happy, because if she's a bit bored or sad, then she doesn't put much effort in tasting the food. Okay, here we go. Chicken inasal is a popular Bacolod dish. It is chicken marinated in vinegar, calamansi, lemongrass, then grilled and basted with annatto oil. It is best eaten with rice topped with annatto oil and a mixture of soy sauce, vinegar, calamansi on the side. So again, you see soy sauce, vinegar, calamansi on the side, because you decide what you want to use. I don't like vinegar, so I only use soy sauce. So it's a dipping sauce. You can mix it up however you like. I like this idea so that nobody can blame the cook. If you're not happy with your food, it's because you didn't spice it the way you like it. If you make a mistake and just pour your vinegar all over your food, that is your fault, and there's no way to remedy that unless I don't know. So the idea of spice is really according to taste. Here is a recipe for your reference. So okay, here we go. So manok kagpato. So the people who can afford it will serve chicken and duck. So we have patutin sa tuba. It's braised native duck in coconut vinegar. Chicken pastel, baked chicken pot pie. Then there's this on the right. This is very common during fiesta, Christmas, New Year, birthdays. Again, because it's difficult to make, we see this very rarely. So the chicken galantina is stuffed deboned chicken loaf. In Lola Muding's house, we wouldn't see this kind of food. For me to try this, I have to go to Lola Agust's house, the Arboleda side. And then, so here are more entrees. So Kadyos Baka Langka. There's the embutido Ilonggo. This is the pork version of the galantina earlier. And then there's bichuelas, pork hock, and Chinese ham stew. In the old days, the bichuelas, what we serve with beans are the discards of discard the like innards and offals, things that are not very popular. So it's the same concept with the feijoada in Brazil. So they used to serve only the like not very popular parts of the pork or the beef, but if you are rich, then they started putting in sausages and choice cuts of meat. So bichuela could be very bare, just beans and a few pieces of meat, or it can be loaded with many ingredients. Then there's lauya, which is pork stewed with unripe langka and a souring agent, again, which is batuan. Okay, so here's if you ever get to go to Bacolod or Iloilo, you have to try the salamukan. Salamukan means to what is it? Sort of to choke on your food. Is what it means. Sa salamukan ko. That's the concept. So the idea is when you taste this, because of how hot it is, you sort of like choke on your food, and also because it's so loaded with meats, it's hard to digest sometimes. But they do this because Ilonggo culture is so exaggerated that for us it's not. For us, it's more is more. We don't know how to do less is more. You just overload your food with ingredients. But it is basically a stew of carabao head and innards, boiled for hours and flavored with lime, lemongrass, and herbs. Also, we have callos morcon, lengua estofado, the oxtang, mechado, which are very common. This is not unique to Ilonggo cuisine. We have that in the Tagalog region as well. But our mechado is very sweet. My mother innovated her recipe by adding 7-Up rather than, it's sugar plus 7-Up. So she wanted it really, she wanted it sweeter. And that's how she would prepare our mechado. Okay, here. So the apan on the left side is the apan-apan nga may tulapo, which is sauteed water spinach with pork crackling. So when I saw this picture, I said, apan-apan man ni? Like, is this apan-apan? Because when I was growing up in Manila, I didn't see the pork. We only had the water spinach and maybe tiny pieces of pork. But this is the more, maybe if you will not order apan-apan from a restaurant, but maybe if they would want to serve something like this and it has a lot of like big chunks of pork, that's not the apan-apan that I grew up with in Manila. Then you have sinugba nga talong nga may giniling nga baboy kagata. So the picture on the right is, you know what it is? That's just tortang talong. So normally you take the eggplant, you grill it, and then that's it. That's my tortang talong growing up. You put egg, a batter of egg, you're done. But look at this, it's so extra, diba? So they put meat, then they put gata pa. So so I hope you understand that the concept is really the food is very basic. It's just sauteed vegetable and a bit of pork, or it's just grilled talong. But if you want to do Ilonggo cuisine in quotation marks, then it becomes this, loaded. You load it with more ingredients rather than simplify. So laswa is a soup, and pangat nga gabi, the picture in the middle is taro leaves, and then that's stuffed with pork, and then we tie them and then cook them in coconut milk. And then there's linatik nga kalabasa, which is just I forgot what kalabasa is. And in kalabasa and coconut milk. Okay, so then we go to the fish. So of course, in my Lola Moding's house, we only get uga, which is dried fish, and sometimes fried rice, and sometimes egg, but not even. So it's fried rice or just plain rice and uga. But it was wonderful to eat. But if you can afford it, you get relleno nga kasag. This was my father's favorite. Because he moved to Manila, he couldn't get relleno nga kasag, and my mother would not sit for hours maghimay ng kasag, and then to make it relleno. So they would wait until my grandmother, Lola Agus, would come, and then she'll bring them the relleno nga kasag. And then my mother will just cook it in coconut milk. Then there's bacalao a la Treñas. So it is basically a stew that you put olives and garnish with parsley. Then there's the sinugba or grilled fish. Grilled fish is very common. You can buy it from any wet market, and they're very affordable. And in Bacolod and in Iloilo, there's the raw ingredients are very cheap. I mean, I say it is cheap compared to Manila, and of course compared to prices in the US. So you can buy a large, a big fish, and then you can grill it yourself. Then here's the postre, okay, or panamis. So we have our own bingka, bingka Ilongga. And then there's this is the bibingka, which is a rice cake. And then dinulsing butong is coconut, sweetened coconut. And on the right is the pinasugbo. This is banana, sort of toasted banana with a lot of syrup and sesame seeds. You have to, when you eat this, talagang sasakit yung ngipin ninyo kasi sobra siyang tamis. Like the molasses, cooked in molasses, and the texture is crunchy and crispy, but it's too sweet. But can you imagine like children growing up with this? So I don't understand. I mean, we're lucky we still have perfect set of teeth. And then there's Ginataan Ilonggo, which is gabi, tapioca, rice balls, and cooked cooked in coconut milk. Sometimes it also has jackfruit or langka. Then there's dulce gatas nga carabao. So it is milk. It's cooked down. It's like a yema, and then you. It's usually just wrapped in Japanese paper, but I've seen very fancy presentations of dulce gatas sang carabao. So again, the recipe book, Flavors of Ilonggo, included recipes for canonigo, mango buttercream, and buko lychee ice cream, homemade. And so it means that especially for the women who mostly the rich families, the women did not work, and they would have time to bake and create, desserts. But that is if you're the kind of woman who likes to cook, because mostly you still hire helpers, maids actually, so that they can prepare your food. And I'd like to point out that this picture on the left, okay, so what it is just ibus, okay? So the ibus is, I'm going to show you another picture. It's just the rice cake that's wrapped in coconut leaves. But here, it's the ibus, and then you glaze it, and then you put langka, and you garnish it, and you put sesame seeds. So like I said, this is a bit medyo uber, diba? So over naman, kasi ibus na lang yan, tapos gagawin mo pang ganito. So I think that my thinking is because there are people there who have really nothing to do. They have time, the luxury of time. They can create, they have time to make things complicated, but depending on which class you belong to. So the ibus in my Lola Muding's house is just the ibus, and then if you have extra sugar or muscovado sugar, then you can dip it in that. But this is caramelized with jackfruit, and then there's the garnish and sesame seeds. So it's a little I'm sure it tastes good, but it's a little extra, I think, to Uber. Okay. This is what I really would like to share with everyone, because it's such a important memory for me, and it is also a dying tradition. So even if I grew up in Manila, and I'd go home to Bacolod during the summer. So I grew up with these ambulant vendors. So, but the practice again started with the Chinese, the picture on the left. The picture on the right is a man who's selling manapua in Hawaii. So this practice reached even Hawaii. So when I was growing up, I walked to and from school. So we lived on Leon Ginto Street, and St. Scholastica's College was just right there. And when I get home, I would have the choice bread for the day that was brought to us by the ambulant vendors. I remember that we had a vendor who would come in his cart or cariton. He would sell coconut, And then his name was Ben, so we called him Ben Buko, which is a play on the words Penduko, who is a folk character in our stories. And we had a person who would bring us our walis tambo, our brooms, and it was a very simple time, and I'm nostalgic for it because we used to, it's a community, um, we were closer as a community, and we were more trusting of people. So people brought your what you needed to your home, and you don't say, oh my god, they're probably going to come in my house and take my stuff. So it's a dying tradition. And Leon Ginto Street right now is very crowded with sidecars, and so it's become very difficult. And the Manuglibod is disappearing. But this is in Bacolod. The what the Manuglibod would sell is are the things on the right photo. They tell me the tradition started in the 1840s when people were, well, okay, let's begin. One of the main pastimes in Bacolod is mahjong. And this is the picture on the left is the scene from Oro Plata Mata. So the rich ladies would play mahjong, and you see the servant at the back, uniformed, who would use a fan to cool them. And even the butong pakwan is peeled for them. It's a little strange, but this is how rich people live. The picture shows the women playing mahjong. The movie is set during wartime, but normally the people who would play mahjong are mostly the men. And the tradition of the Manuglibod started because they didn't want to get up from their seats, and they just wanted food brought to them. So hence the Manuglibod. They didn't have time to go out buy stuff from the market, so it was brought to them. And you think this is an exaggeration, but it is not, because in our house in Leon Ginto, my father and his best friends, I call them best friends because they're there every Saturday, Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon of the next to Sunday afternoon, the next day, right? So it's 24, literally 24 hours of playing mahjong in our house. And my mother would provide different snacks for them. But in the 70s, 80s, when I would go to Bacolod, this is the site that you will see the Manuglibod. I look forward to the Manuglibod every day. And I will tell you what is in that basket later. But again, the concept of restraint, like the philosophy of Kimila, right? So if you're a child, you want to take one of each or all of that. But my mother would tell me, you can only choose one. We don't have that much money, so choose one. And you would choose what you would like for the day. And hopefully you can catch the Manuglibod the next day, and then you try something else. I'm lucky if I am able to stay for a whole month in Bacolod, because then by the time the month is up, I would have tried all of them. But sometimes they're there for a week or 10 days, and I'm like, I haven't tried the other stuff. And when do I find the manuglibod again? So it is, again, a lesson on simplicity and just taking what you can eat, because I told my mom, but can you just buy it for me and then I'll eat it for later? And then he said, believe me, you cannot eat all of that in a day, so just to wait for the next day. The some of the women who so you see, the rich are playing mahjong and then the poor are trying to make ends meet by being very creative in selling rice cakes. The But the manuglibod of today is uh, it has, but the what they sell today has changed. So it became sandwiches, like hot dog sandwiches and burgers. They still have the kakanin, but they have like hot dog sandwiches and burgers, because that's what people in like school, the high school kids normally eat, and they cannot um, really go around to each home anymore. So they would take the food to the city hall and sell over there. So they would source the different um, kakanin, and then bring everything to the central area, which is the city hall, where there's the bus and the jeepney depot. Because if you went to buy all these different items, they're in farther places. But I miss the idea that you can sit when my brother and I were playing. Our hands were really dirty with the old tires, then the manuglibod would come to us, and then we can just choose what we want to eat. Then a note on the mahjong. There are two kinds of mahjong that's played in the Philippines. The one for kids is called tumba tumba, which means that to just let the chips fall. It removes the fourth it removes the winces, and you just play with the ones to nines, which isn't any fun. But my father taught me how to play what they call limit, which is a more sophisticated mahjong game. There are different types, like special ways to form your characters and win the game. For example, Escalera is 1 to 9 of the same suit. There's and then there's 13 tails if you collect all of the pairs of the winces, etc. My father said, hindi gid ka mo magdaog sa akon sa mahjong kay ga short pants pa lang ko gabadjong na ako. So he says he started playing mahjong when he was still in short pants, and so nobody can win against him. And for me, again, the wallflower, when I was they would play by the kitchen, next to the kitchen. They would set up the mahjong table, and we had the stairs to the second floor of our Leon Ginto apartment, and I would watch my father's cards all day long, and understand his process, and how, because mahjong is a game of strategy. So I observed and learned how to play mahjong from him. So whenever me and my cousins would play, I think I had the bit of a bit of an advantage because of how my father used to play. My father is the better player, but whenever my mom plays against him, my mom always wins. My mom is not a strategist, but then she's very lucky. So the missing card always like magically appears for my mother, and my dad is like, why? I'm the one who's smart and I'm the astute player and I have a strategy and you just win. Just like that. Here's the card you've been waiting for. So it's very for me it's a sentimental thing. So what is in that manuglibod basket? So here are some of the things that are in there. Oops. Okay, so we have ibus, which is a glutinous rice cooked in coconut milk. We have kuchinta on the bottom, which is a steamed rice cake made with tapioca flour, lye, and brown sugar with annatto coloring. There is Inday, which is a Hiligaynon term of endearment. So my mom was called Inday by my dad, which is a term of endearment for a beloved daughter or sister. It is a chewy poached rice flour treat, and it's taken with muscovado sugar. So a note on the muscovado sugar. It is a special. It's like molasses. So and you can see that the sugar is it's not fine. It's the raw form of sugar. And my mother could only access muscovado if Lola Agus comes to town. So she would hoard the muscovado and use it sparingly in her coffee every morning, and would not use it for cooking, even if she knows that that's the ingredient that would make a difference in our food. And whenever it's Lola Agus who comes to town, she has to share the muscovado with the 10 other families in Manila. So yeah, it's a valuable thing for her. And then I told her, why don't you just ask Lola Muding to bring you some? Then you're the only one that she will bring muscovado for. But of course, Lola Muding has no doesn't travel to Manila. And despite my Lola Agus's I mean, they're relatively well off, but she would always tell my grandfather, my dad, this was her favorite expression. You know naman, iking, fuerte ka budlay sang pangabuhi dire. So that's 4 languages in one sentence. So iking, Ike, my father, life is so very difficult today. So anyway, that's just a side note about Inday Inday. And this is the kalamay hati. Kalamay is sugar and hati means half. So it is coconut mixed, cooked in sugar. And then they actually close it with tape again. And then when you open it, it stretches like gum. And then you can eat it. When my brothers and I were young, I can't imagine. We each took one. I mean, really hati. Like he took one shell and I took the other, and we spent the whole day eating this. And for today, when I look at it, I'm like, I can't even eat 2 tablespoons of this. How did we eat all this as children? But I guess we were running around and we were hungry again, and yeah, but we could finish one half of a kalamay hati. On the left is the on the right is the ibus, and at the bottom left is the piaya. The piaya is a baked flat bread stuffed with muscovado sugar. And so this is because my name is Pia. My father would call my mom Inday. Inday was the term of endearment, and then my nickname was Piaya, which is this flatbread with sugar. Um, and then there is bicho bicho is the picture on the right. And we had our own puto. And here on the right is bayi bayi, which is kakanin made by combining ground toasted pinipig, young coconut meat, coconut water, and sugar. And it has a very chewy texture. And I'm almost done. Oh, this is we also have a baking tradition in Bacolod and Iloilo. The left is called hojaldres, and then the bottom is kamachile, and oh, I forgot what that other that white biscuit is called. But and there's the barquillos, and sometimes the barquillos is stuffed with sweetened powdered milk. What I would like to, I'm close to my conclusion, but what I can say about the Bacolod sensibility is that we can upgrade or simplify food very easily. But if can, we prefer to overload it with stuff. And the Bacolod ingenuity is shown by the piaya that I showed you earlier. We now have ube piaya and different flavors of piaya, which means that we have a an entrepreneurial spirit and try to innovate an old product. It's the same product, but they say, oh, maybe if we add ube, it will, sell or taste better, give people a new experience. It's the same with polvoron. We now have cookies and cream polvoron. Um, what else? Ube polvoron, etc. So the innovative spirit is definitely present in the Ilonggo sensibility. And I'd like to end with this. This, of course, this not all that you would learn about Ilonggo cuisine. There's so much more you can read online and watch videos but this is my son, Erigo Miguel. On the left, he was wearing my master's degree toga. And this is his picture. He graduated with a culinary degree in culinary and pastry at the Kapiolani Community College. So he was trained he got his knife skills from Osaka Osaka School of Culinary Art. But I think that the way he would decorate a cake like this, very elaborate, is his Ilonggo side. Because normally in Japan, it would be very simple, very elegant, but whether he likes it or not, I think his upbringing and what he has observed, or maybe genetics, I don't know, influences the way he would prepare his food. But what I like about him is that he knows the right balance of things. He can make something very simple, but he can also make something really, really elaborate, which is important not only in cooking but also in our daily life. There's a time to be ostentatious. There is a time for simplicity. And we can only hope that we all live a balanced life and cuisine is a big part of that. The last thing that I would like to leave you with is food. Ilonggo food is about community. Remember chismis, and the food doesn't taste the same if you're cooking it by yourself. So I always tell my people, form a tribe, because there's no sense in eating by yourself or preparing food by yourself. And so I would like to thank everybody who took the time, you who are my community, who took the time to come and join me here today. Maraming maraming salamat po. Damo nga salamat padayon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pia. So we're now opening the floor for questions. If you would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself, state your name, and go ahead and ask. So to start with, siguro muna, Dr. Pia, do you have like a distinctive childhood memory that you can associate with Ilonggo food?
My distinct childhood memory is the chismis during is the chismis during when we prepare pancit molo. Like I said, I will not I cook pancit molo here, I swear, but I will not do this by myself. It's only fun if you have people to make pancit molo with you. It takes all day just to wrap the dumplings, and then there's the soup. You have to if you are rich, you take the ham bone, and boil it to death, and then put in all of the meats, but the pancit molo is my favorite part is when you put the toasted garlic on top. So growing up, my memory is that women were always in the kitchen. My aunties, they were just, I don't know, cooking all the time, and it was my brother who was with them, so he knew all the chismis before I did. I don't know what I was doing. I was always alone. I had no friends. I mean, yeah, but he was always with my aunties. They're always cooking. So he's the better cook, actually. Apart from being the more good looking person. Yeah, so that's the.
Thank you, Dr. Pia. So I was really appreciative of what you mentioned about the suka, the vinegar, that the condiments in, I guess, not just in Iloilo or Ilonggo cuisine, but Filipino cuisine in general, that there's a relationship between the chefs and those who are eating the food, that you can adjust the food depending on your preference and your taste. I think that's something very unique to Filipino cuisines as well.
Yes, kasi kung gagawin mo yan dito sa mga Michelin star restaurant, medyo patay, di ba? Like if you can't do that in a fine dining restaurant here. For us, it's about it's a communion. You take part in the process. It's a community thing, and we are so eager to please, actually. So like if you were to come to my house, I'm gonna say, Mom Diesel, what do you want to eat with your food? Because I want to make sure that you get what you want. Because it's a good thing because we don't impose our own tastes on other people. So my son and I, whenever he cooks, I will say, can you please don't put too much pepper. So he put less pepper for me, and then serve it, and then on the table he puts as much peppers as he wants, because he wants me to be happy. And then he said, Mom, if you don't, if I'm just gonna do what you want, because I know I will never hear the end of it. Like, you're going to eat it like sobra naman yung pepper dito, ganun ganun. So I don't wanna hear it. So okay, here's your food, you know. But I have to say he's a very resilient kid, because if you ask him, why did you become a chef, and he would say, because when we were living in Japan, my mom would cook adobo that's good for 5 days, and just reheat it every day, and then next week she'll cook another dish and then we'll eat it for 5 days. So I told him, if you want to eat your own food, or if you want variety, then go ahead, dozo, here's the kitchen. And then, you know what? He actually enjoyed cooking, thank God, or else we would have both starved over there.
Do we have other questions on the floor? Mia, please go ahead. Unmute yourself. Okay, so while waiting for Mia, are there other questions on the floor? Or I just like to thank the chefs who took the time. I'm sure you're very busy preparing for July 4th this week. So thank you very much for attending this online presentation. And of course, Dr. Pia, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. And we have Mark, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hello? Oh,
Yes, we
okay.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello po. Maraming salamat nasa information. Little bit about about me. I'm also a cook. I graduated from KCC as well. So I give props to your son, and that I could almost feel the same way that he's doing. So I especially want to specifically focus on Filipino food. So I'm very thankful for the information that you've shared with us, especially me. But anyways, my question would be that specifically Ilonggo cuisine, would you consider as being like a, for example, you wouldn't sell it to individual people, it would be more of like a family dish, like it would be shared, correct?
I think so, because can you imagine cooking pancit molo and then serving one person? It's like not worth it. So that's why we cook. Yeah, it's a lot of yeah. It's always family style. Yeah, it's
Okay.
always family style. Because it's so hard to cook, so you might as well do a big batch, and then share. Yeah, yeah, that observation is correct, at least for in my family, but I think ours is a pretty typical Ilonggo family.
Opo. No, yeah, no, I think so too.
And congratulations, KCC is such a wonderful school. They actually take care of their students, and are so very happy when they see you all graduated.
Of course, thank you po.
Aside from molo, Dr. Pia, do you have like a favorite like dessert from
I do have a dessert which I didn't discuss, but it's
Mhm.
called banana royale. So it is bananas cooked in rum and butter and sugar. Then you layer it in a pan, put pinipig, toasted pinipig, and cream on top. So that was my childhood memory. And the pinipig then gets a texture. It's almost like tapioca, and then you can slice it up. So that's one dessert that I really like. And I actually prepared it for the Filipino curriculum project for them. And I'm proud to say I don't cook again. I rarely go into the kitchen, but the pan that I prepared, it was all gone. And I saw there was nothing that was thrown into the garbage. But of course, first you have to like bananas to like that dessert.
Nako, when I visit Dr. Pia,
Yes, I
try
promise.
that.
I didn't know that of course I never go anywhere, right? So I didn't know that we had pinipig at Seafood City, or else I would have prepared this for many years ago. So this is the first time I prepared it since I got here actually, because I didn't know that we could find it there. So now that I know that it's available, then I can now share my childhood memory. Go ahead, Mia. Hello, magandang hapon.
Hello, magandang hapon po, Dr. Pia. Thank you so much for your very informative lecture presentation. I just wanted to ask po, what sets Ilonggo cuisine apart from cuisine from Pampanga or from Bicol, the more known cuisines in the Philippines. And what would be the best way to market it to those who are not yet, in the know about Ilonggo cuisine? I think this can also help our friends who are joining us at the Filipino Food Week in October, so that they can better present it in a way that's more, Ilonggo in that style. Yes.
I think what separates it apart from the batuan, right, which is the main ingredient, and the sinamag, it's really the I'm sorry to say, but it's the sugar. So the sugar is the muscovado sugar, and everything is a tad sweeter. So like I said, mechado is sweeter. You know, it's a bit strange to if you're not used to it, but it's because even our savory food is sweet in Bacolod and Iloilo, and what sets it apart is actually the kakanin, the the rice cakes, because piyaya is hard to find anywhere else. Bye is unique to our region. So it's the main dishes like the entree, morcon, calyos, you get that in Manila as well. But if you have a side of kakanin and the sweets that are from our region, then it makes it's the set, that they sort of go together as a set. And I think it's in the presentation. But again, let me qualify. If you have money, right? Obviously, there's a simple table in day-to-day ordinary settings. But if it's a commercial setting, Ilonggo cuisine is very magarbo. You think busy. We don't like play. We like more is more nga eh. Do you know the concept of horror vacui, right? It means you're afraid of empty space. So if you have a wall in your house, you have to hang something on the wall. If you have a table, you have to put something on the table. It's very different from the Japanese, in which if you have a shelf, they put some stuff here, and then they say this should be empty because it's room to breathe. And then you put something, and then room to breathe. In Ilonggo, there's no room to breathe. It's all... Naku, may space pa. Lagyan pa natin ng kung ano. So that's part of it, because like I said, it depends on which which side of the railroad tracks you belong to, right? The very rich can afford to put ham, into their soup, while the others would have, very minimal ingredients. So yeah, but one muscovado sugar, sinamak, might be things that you could play around with. I think the way to market it is to show like is to draw on nostalgia, like the old movies, how we used to live when life was simpler. My Can you imagine my on my dad's side, there were 10 of them in the family. They all graduated. They're all lawyers. Most of them are lawyers. But the other side had 8 children. They could send everybody to school. It was a simpler time. It was a time where people trusted one another. You can come close to my doorstep and I won't think that you will murder me. So it's maybe the equivalent of that here is like the plantation era here, where things were grand, the houses were big, and our hearts were bigger. And the idea that we feed everyone. We don't say, okay, I'm making a pot of pancit molo and give only these people and not the others. We give everyone. So the idea of generosity, I think what we can do for Pinoy Food Week would be have like one stall, and then you can have this stall share with the other stalls what they have, so that then you can prepare a set a set meal, because the concept is I give you something and I get something in return. And even if I don't get something in return, we just give. So the idea that, what we like, kahit na medyo kasi bugalon, like mayabang yung mga yung mga Ilonggo, right? Pero we like free stuff. So parang akala mo madaming pera, pero pag binigay mo, it's libre or it's discount, or then we like the extra. It's like the extra, the free stuff, But then when we say free, we say it's free because it's a love gift. We give it because we love you, not because it's extra, because here people put extra stuff on sale, pero it's because it's extra. Ito hindi, we give it to you because we love you, not because wala na kaming pagdadalhan nitong pagkain then we just give it to you for free. Does that answer your question, Nato?
Yes po, thank you so much.
Very interesting insight, Dr. Pia. So Ilonggo are big hearts and I guess extravagant in style in food, no?
Parang medyo ganon. Parang medyo medyo yeah, hindi. It's very opposite sa Japan na parang simple, of course you can make it elegant naman. It's also elegant. Pero we like garnish. Garnish and medyo extra kasi it's the concept is, if you my mother told me, if you have money, you should know how to spend it. If you don't have money, kaya mo rin magtipid, 'di ba? You can also tighten your belt if you don't have the resources. So we make use of what we have. And we mahilig sa display. I-display mo kung maganda. O kahit na hindi masyadong maganda, it's okay pa rin. I-display mo pa rin. So, I think that's true for most Ilonggo. Medyo kasi kami, mga kulang sa pansin, di ba? So sometimes my son would tell me, ano ka ba ma, don't draw attention to yourself, But then I'm like, kung magaling ka, sabihin mo. So ganun din kung may pagkain ka, gandahan mo na, minsan ka lang magpapakain, mga ganun. Although like I said, I also grew up with tuyo and plain tortang talong, and we don't have to be pretentious about the food, like put caramelized, ganun. Simple pa rin yung flavors, di ba? But I think sometimes it's the presentation that makes a difference. One thing is, I know sometimes my adopted children will always laugh at me because I cannot eat dessert on the same plate that I ate savory food on. So, talagang parang, what? Parang hindi ilagay mo lang dito sa plato. Hindi, may adobo na yan. You can't put my cake on the plate that has adobo. I'm like super, I don't know, hindi ko kaya. Pero sabi, ayan na naman, Ilongga side, lumalabas na naman kasi, may tagahugas ka, So ko, hindi, ako din naghuhugas niya, pero thank God may dishwasher, di ba? Pero that's the idea kasi if you grew up, like, remember, these people are hacienderos, wala sila talagang ginagawa. So they can afford to make really nice stuff, yung mga napkin, may mga napkin folding, ano pa yan. I guess there's a whole class just to fold your napkins and how to present them. But yeah, that's one side. There's also the side that's, they told me, kung ikaw maghuhugas niyan, talaga hindi mo papahiwalay pa yung dessert mo. Sabi ko, ipapahiwalay ko pa rin talaga.
I understand, Dr. Pia. I can relate to having different plates for savory food and sweets.
Yeah, 'di ba? Wag naman, 'di ba? Although sa iba kasi okay lang eh, 'di ba? Parang hindi dito mo na lang ko no, hindi ilalagay diyan. And it's okay for us to like drink from the can, 'di ba? Pero sa amin talaga, bigyan ka talaga ng baso. Parang ilagay mo sa baso para ganda naman. Parang ganon. Just a small concept. It's the little things that make a difference, di ba? Like drinking from a soda can or, bigyan ka ulit ng baso. But like I said, sinasabi na naman nila, kasi hindi naman ikaw ang maghuhugas ng baso, But it's part of our generally Filipino hospitality. So ganun din sa Ilonggo culture,
Okay. Last call for questions. Or if no more, you can, of course, contact the consulate or email us at honolulupcg.cultural@dfa.gov.ph. Mukhang wala naman na. Dr. Pia, any message to our potential participants for the Filipino Food Week?
I would just like to thank everybody for joining me today. Thank you po sa Philippine Consulate, Ma'am Lizelle, Ma'am Grace, Elaine, and of course, Conjen, maraming salamat po sa inyo. Thank you for my tribe who took the time out of their busy schedules to come here today. And to the chefs, I really look forward to your interpretations of Ilonggo cuisine. I know that people are very particular about their own cuisine, but for Ilonggo, innovation is encouraged. We don't say, oh my God, this doesn't taste like KBL, Kadyos Baboy Langka. If you have your interpretation of Kadyos Baboy Langka, we're happy to try it because at least one, you took the time to study what it is and then to make it your own. And I think that Ilonggo cuisine reminds us to be daring, to be bold, and to do everything with love, as in all things, because in the end, it is for your community. So don't think of what you like, but think about what would make your tribe happy. Maraming salamat po for your time and for joining me today.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Pia. That ends our online presentation, and we look forward to your participation for Filipino Food Week. And I hope this can be the first of many like online presentations on Filipino cuisine. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Have a great day, everyone.